Hello, and thanks for joining us for our weekly film show with our critic, Lisa Nesselson. Hello, Lisa.
Hello, Eve.
Now, we were supposed to be at the Cannes Film Festival this week and next. Are you feeling the same ache in your heart as I am?
I think that postponing or canceling Cannes is comparable to postponing or canceling something like the Olympic Games, although comparing films to each other tends to be more subjective than comparing athletes and athletic accomplishments.
This isn't the first time the Cannes Film Festival has been cancelled, is it?
Oh, no. The very first festival was slated to start on September 1st, 1939. It was meant to be a sort of slap in the face to Mussolini, who had started the Venice Film Festival to show off his belief in fascism and fascist art. So the free world was going to show fascists what non-fascist artists could do. Unfortunately, Germany invaded Poland and World War II began. After the war, they had to cancel it in 1948 and 1950 for budgetary reasons. And then it hit its stride until 1968, when it was suddenly branded a bourgeois event, and it was stopped halfway out of solidarity with the students and the workers who were striking in Paris. That eventually spread to the entire country in the events that we now refer to as May 68.
And the glamorous part of this festival, the world premieres and the celebrities, that's just a small part of it, isn't it?
Oh, this is the world's biggest film market, and people come from all over the world to buy and sell films that have been completed, and especially films that have not been made yet. And that is so crucial to the world film industry that an online version of that event will take place over the course of 4 days at the end of June. But the festival itself has said that they don't even understand what an online film festival would entail, and that absolutely nothing can compare to big screens, people together, audiences, that sort of thing. To the enormous credit of the city of Cannes, very early in the coronavirus crisis, when only a few hundred people had died here in France, they opened the Palais des Festivals to homeless people. Now, ordinarily, you can't get anywhere near getting into that building during the Cannes Film Festival unless you have a very hard-to-get accreditation badge. And so they welcomed homeless people and have been feeding and sheltering them.
The official selection was due to be announced last month, and organisers are still hoping that somehow the Cannes Film Festival will take place, so they're still accepting submissions until the beginning of June. Any idea what's already on their list?
No, not yet, but we do know that the selection committee has gone on working in lockdown, and that they've watched as many films as they usually get, which is about 1,500. They have promised that they will announce in early June the films that they would have selected had they been able to do the festival normally, and that they will do everything they can to support those movies as they are released in theaters, hopefully between this summer and next spring. And any film that made that cut, that selection, will be entitled to a Cannes 2020 label, which I imagine will look very nice. And they are determined to organize screenings when that becomes possible, health and safety-wise, in cinemas all over the world. Slated for an October release now is what would almost certainly have been the opening night film, and that is Wes Anderson's The French Dispatch. He has been in competition at the festival before, and his very distinctive cast would have looked wonderful walking up the steps together.
Well, let's take a glimpse at The French Dispatch.
Oh, shut up.
That was The French Dispatch. Spike Lee was due to be the jury president, wasn't he?
Yes, Spike Lee would have been the first president chosen from the African diaspora, and he, of course, has been at Cannes several times in competition with do the right thing, and 2 years ago with his wonderful film, Black Klansman.
And at the moment, he's due to release a new film on Netflix. It's due to come out in June. It's called Da Five Bloods. And the story follows African-American Vietnam War veterans who return to the jungle in search of treasure they buried there. And he's actually made a short film, I think it's less than 3 minutes actually, called New York, New York, dedicated to the people living and working in the city during the coronavirus pandemic. Let's take a look.
I want to wake up in a city that doesn't sleep and find I'm king of the hill, top of the heap. These little town blues are melting away. I'll make a brand new start of it in old New
Festival programmer Thierry Frémaux has said that he hopes that Spike Lee will come back and be jury president a year from now in 2021. And Frémaux also, in a recent interview in Screen International, quoted Jean-Paul Sartre, who in Les Mots said the following: "Once the cinema was invented, one realized it was impossible to live without it." End quote. So Frémaux is confident that cinema going will bounce back, and I agree with him.
Well, the French film industry has been particularly hard hit by this health crisis, and the government recently announced some relief measures. Here's President Macron.
Le monde va un peu se refragmenter. Et donc, on a besoin aussi de défendre ce qui est cette exception française, cette force de création européenne. Dans cette phase, moi, je veux ici m'engager très clairement devant vous à ce que, justement, les plateformes soient assujetties aux obligations de financement des œuvres françaises et européennes dès le 1er janvier 2021.
Lisa, tell us about the government's programme and how it's been received.
Well, people who are on short-term contracts, which is everybody from publicists to makeup artists to people who design posters, as well as actors and technicians, in order to qualify for unemployment benefits, they have to show that they have worked a little more than 500 hours each year. And that has been rendered impossible thanks to the virus, and especially because all of the summer festivals have been canceled, where a lot of those people who do temporary work get a lot of their money. So one of the things the government has announced, and it's a great relief, is that those people will retain their coverage through next summer. There are something that's especially promising is that Macron, as you heard there, has said that France is going to lead the way in obliging the subscription streaming platforms, Netflix, etc., to contribute to the fund, as television stations and movie theaters do, that helps make future French films and television programs. So that's an initiative that is quite promising.
Okay, changing the subject slightly now and talking about some of the week's film news. NASA has announced that Tom Cruise is going to be the first actor to make a film in outer space. Tell us more.
Well, I'm never going to complain about commuting to work ever again, because the International Space Station is 250 miles away from the Earth. Cruise, of course, is in his 50s. He's probably the last of our old-fashioned movie stars who absolutely revels in doing his own stunts. He's in incredibly good physical shape, and the result of that is that we're afraid for him, and it has a very real seeming effect, because that really is him risking his life. The speculation is that Elon Musk's SpaceX rocket will get Cruise and whoever comes with him, probably a director and maybe one other actor, up to the space station. We know it's not going to be a Mission Impossible movie, but there's no script yet and there's no studio. And once they do get up there, they have to be self-sufficient in their module, because the real astronauts have, important experiments to do.
Okay, well, it's been 40 years now, Lisa, since David Lynch's Elephant Man. It's been restored. It would have been re-released in French cinemas if it was not for this pandemic, but it is available for home viewing now. Tell us more.
This is a melancholy, magnificent film in black and white, directed by David Lynch, who had really only made Eraserhead before that. It's the story of a man who is horribly, horribly deformed, who is rescued from a carnival sideshow and endeavors to be taken seriously as a human being in London society. One of the funniest men who has ever lived, Mel Brooks, actually produced it, but they didn't advertise that at the time because they didn't want people being misled into thinking that this was a comedy, which it definitely is not. And it co-starred his wife, Anne Bancroft. The movie won one of the very first Césars, French Film Award, as Best Foreign Language Film, when those awards were just getting started. And despite 8 nominations for the Oscars, there was outcry that no one had honored the extraordinary makeup. And so the Oscars Academy the next year began their prize for outstanding accomplishment in makeup and hair design.
Okay, Lisa, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to see you next week. We're going to leave you guys at home with David Lynch's Elephant Man. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.
Are you in any pain? Are your parents still alive?
Life is full of surprises.